Protect the flock, we rally in the lion's den. Shield to shield, the storm is thundering. Unleash the roar, let the lions run. Torch the night until the battle's won.
All right, welcome back to the Lion's Den, Wednesday edition. We're back on schedule. Now, I won't be having one Sunday. I'll be off schedule Sunday. I'm going to be in Minneapolis, so I'll be doing one probably Monday, Tuesday at the latest, okay? So we'll not have one Sunday, but I am back on schedule for this Wednesday, so that makes me feel good. And we'll do a couple of shout-outs, and I'm going to read some things again. But I want these episodes on Wednesday to be about 30 minutes long at the most. When I first started from 8 Arbitration, those episodes were generally short when I started. Then I started talking a lot more between education, and so I want to just be strictly education on these, and that's what James wants, and so that's what we're going to do, okay? I am going to do a couple of shout-outs, and then I'll get into some reading. I'm going to cover some things that are hot topics. Pet, obviously. There's something else I want to cover. Some things that people have reached out about, and it's concerning pet. We're talking about these auto pivots and things like that. So have a pen and paper ready. I'm going to drop a lot of documents on you today and read them that are going to be helpful during this period of time of pet and DOIS. And I'm going to keep doing it. All right. So let me give a couple of shout outs first, and then I'll get into these things. All right. It says, sorry to bother you again. Can you try and give us a shout out to branch 3028? We had the deadly floods hit us the hardest. President Cecil Cloyd, VP, Jesse McElhaney, Secretary Stephanie Fulton, and the Texas Hammer, Alonzo Cruz. He's our steward. Let me read those again. President Cecil Cloyd, VP Jesse McElhaney, Secretary Stephanie Fulton, and the Texas Hammer, Alonzo Cruz. He's our steward. Just need extra prayers for our community. I know you're busy and got a lot of irons in the fire, but if you could just remember to give us a shout out, hey, absolutely. Don't matter how busy I am. If you want a shout out, send it to me and I'll give it to you. So absolutely. The devastation in Texas, everybody's seen it by now. The loss of life, devastating. And so definitely give you a shout out and give you some prayers. And you know that we love you. And we're all praying for you. So branch 3028 had the deadly floods hit us the hardest. President Cecil Cloyd, VP Jesse McElhaney, Secretary Stephanie Fulton, and the Texas Hammer, Alonzo Cruz. He's our steward. So there you go. Just know that we love you and we're praying for you still, all right? I could not imagine the sheer devastation that y'all have had to endure. Tragic. Couple of things. Richie Ray, candidate for Region 15 National Business Agent Fundraising Event. August 3rd, 2025 at 1 p.m. The Ocean Yacht Club, 370 Front Street, Staten Island, New York, 10304. $50 per person. There's going to be a 50-50 raffles, food, drinks. To reserve your spot, contact Jeremy, 917-882-1742, or Hector, 646-717-5399, or Jonathan, 347-447-8116. So I'm going to read that again because y'all know I love my man Richie Ray. Richie Ray, candidate for Region 15 National Business Agent Fundraising Event. Now, you know Richie Ray is part of the CLC slate. August 3rd, 2025 at 1 p.m. The Ocean Yacht Club, 370 Front Street, Staten Island, New York, 10304, $50 per person. There's 50-50 raffles, food, drinks. To reserve your spot, contact Jeremy, 917-882-1742, Hector, 646-717-5399, or Jonathan, 347-447-8116. All right? Here's another one, my man Bill Kribel. Backyard Barbecue. CLC candidate for Region 12. August 31st, 2025, from 1 p.m. to 5 p.m. Wayne and Grove Park Pavilion 3. Access on E. Bull's Head Road. Grumpy's Barbecue Chicken, mac and cheese, coleslaw, and roll with butter. Beer, water, soda, merchandise, and door prize, $50 donation. So let me read that again by my man, the killer, Bill Kribel. The Backyard Barbecue, CLC candidate for Region 12, August 31st, 2025, from 1 p.m. to 5 p.m. Wayne A. Group Park Pavilion 3. Access on E. Bull's Head Road. Grumpy's Barbecue Chicken, mac and cheese, coleslaw, and roll with butter. Beer, water, soda, merchandise, door prize, $50 donation. So there you have it, my guys. Bill and Richie doing their thing for the CLC in two regions that desperately need them to win. Desperately need them to win. I'm going to say something here. I'll say it again Sunday, but I'm going to get on my man Mr. Barner, the EVP. I'm going to give him a challenge on here, and then I'm going to give him a challenge Sunday style. But I can't do that on this episode of the Lion's Den because I don't act like that. But I'm going to give him a challenge. All right? Here's a challenge to Mr. Paul Barner, EVP. And I'm going to challenge him again Sunday. Well, I won't be here Sunday. Maybe Monday or Tuesday. I'm going to give him a real challenge. Back when, in Memphis, we had the decision that removed the 3 managers and removed the district manager, even though he'd retired. The arbitrator went after him as well. That's going to be our blueprint for going forward. The dogs of war is we're going to get district managers involved. We're going to be that inconvenience, like I said. So he removed that arbitrator Swallow, at behest of labor. They call him and they tell him they want that arbitrator removed. And so they made a joint phone call and he removed that arbitrator Swallow. Gave us one of the best decisions we've ever had. Again, out of Region 2, we have an arbitrator give a decision that's going to help us immensely with non-compliance. The arbitrator said that management is going to pay the full freight. Y'all remember me getting on that, about him doing that. This arbitrator said, hey, management's going to pay full freight. They're going to pay their share and the union's share because we shouldn't keep coming to arbitration on this same matter. He had arbitral precedents to support his decision, other arbitrators that had ruled the same way. And what happened again? Labor gets a hold of Barner, and they make a joint phone call to the arbitrator, and they say, hey, you need to amend your decision. You can't do that, even though there's arbitrable precedents that he relied upon. So you have Barner actively going against the letter carriers, actively hurting the city letter carriers, which is nothing new. That's what him and Renfro have done from day one. I've got a challenge for you, Mr. Barner. So if anybody's listening to that has his ear, here's my challenge to him. I had an advocate call me today. They went in front of an arbitrator Lumley with a JSOV case against an individual they say is the worst they've ever seen. So bad that even the station manager was going to come in there and testify on the union's behalf against the supervisor. That's how bad this clown was. He's the worst they've seen. And so they come in there, management comes in there with a new argument that they didn't raise initially, one that the supervisor has been removed. We know that game. They'll remove them, say that they went to MSPB, and during the mediation they'll bring them back. We've talked about that before in Cleveland, Mississippi, and Jackson, Mississippi. They do that. It's a guise. It's a ruse, and that's what I'll tell arbitrators. Matter of fact, that's what I told them in the case in Cleveland. This is just a guise. It's a ruse. We have a right to a decision on the remedy requested. Then the arbitrator looks at the B-team decision. The case hadn't even started yet. We haven't even given opening arguments. And the arbitrator looks at the case file of the B-team. He gets to the second page, and he says, I can't give you what you're asking for. And the advocate says, excuse me? He said, I can't give you what you're asking for. I don't agree with National Arbitrator Snow's decision, and I will not abide by it. That's what a regional arbitrator stated to the advocate. I do not agree with National Arbitrator Snow's decision regarding the JSOV and the application of it, and I will not abide by it. Now here's an arbitrator, regional, telling you that he's not going to abide by a national arbitrator's decision. Everybody knows. It is contract language what a national arbitrator rules. A national arbitrator gives a decision, it's contract language. You never see a regional arbitrator's decision in the JCAM. Only national arbitrators, Snow, Mendenthal, those. And so you have a regional arbitrator telling you in the hearing that he is not going to abide by a national arbitrator's decision because he doesn't agree with it. I want Paul Barner to call labor and in a joint phone call, remove this arbitrator from the panel. Remove him from the panel. He should be gone by the end of the week. That's a challenge because what's good for the goose is good for the gander. If labor can call you and tell you to kick one of our arbitrators off that had a strong ruling out of Memphis, and you do that, then you should call labor and say, hey, we have a regional arbitrator refusing to abide by a national arbitrator's decision. We need this arbitrator off the panel. Let's see if you got it in you, Mr. Barner, to do that, right? I'll tell you one thing I will never do when I'm EVP. I will never take anything that labor says into consideration. If they call me and say, we need to call an amendment, I'm not calling anything. If you want to amend a decision, try to vacate it in court. We need to call an arbitrator and remove him from the panel. Not doing that. Not doing it. But you have Barner who's doing that because you have him and Renfro at the top, clueless as far as what we do. And so, Mr. Barner, a challenge to you. Call labor. Kick Lumley off the panel this week for saying out loud that he does not agree with Arbitrator Snow's decision and therefore won't abide by it. Okay? So here's some things I'm going to read. Now look, here's your decision that y'all need to make that are listening. Do you want to be good at what you do or do you want to be great at what you do? It's your decision. It's nobody else's. I talked about it in the JSOV episodes. Do you want to be good or do you want to be great? You want to be an expert? 100% up to you if that's what you want to do. It is boring being great. If you want to be great, it's boring. Why? Because you have to read, and read. It's just boring. But if you want to be good, don't read anything. Just do the basics. If you want to be great, read. And so I'm going to read to you. And I'm going to continue to read to you, even though it's boring. It's boring to me. It puts me to sleep. I yawn a lot. It's boring to you. Probably puts y'all to sleep. But y'all have to decide, do you want to be good or do you want to be great? I want y'all to be great. I need y'all to be great because when the CLC takes over, y'all are going to be involved in changing the culture on the workroom floor. Y'all are going to be involved. One thing that I'll say this and I'll start reading. One thing that I love about y'all, other than light blue, being light blue, I love you. But one thing I love about y'all is y'all's engagement that we're seeing across the country. I'll tell you why. Yesterday I had an episode. I was angry. Y'all could tell that. But I said that we're going to have the dogs of war for the toxic work environment. I also want to have teams for the falsification of clock rings. I also want to have teams for the safety violations, the deliberate intentional safety violations that managers do. We're going to have experts on those talking about filing OSHA complaints, how we're going to handle those things, going up the chain again to district managers because I want them involved. I want them inconvenienced. Y'all want to settle things? Get the upper management involved. They don't want to be. They want to give instructions like you heard this lady on this teleconference. They want to give idiotic instructions and not be held accountable. They're going to let the supervisors get punched around in the grievance process and go to arbitrations. We're going to make them we're going to hold them accountable, okay? Today, the amount of emails I got and messages saying, hey, if you get teams together for falsification of clock rings, I want to be on them. Hey, if you get the teams together for the safety things, I want to be on them. That's what I love about you. When I say that the carriers have stood up and it's something that has not been seen before, that's what I'm talking about. So it encourages me more than anything else to know that my brothers and sisters are saying, hey, I pick up that flag. I'm going to pick up that flag. We're going to fight. I want to be in the fight. And so I love you. I love you. I want to fight. All the time I want to fight. I may lose. I'm going to keep fighting. I've lost a lot. I've lost 40 arbitrations. I've lost. But that's not going to keep me from fighting. Regardless of what people say, I'm not going to stop fighting. We will fight until we retire. Right? And then we'll help people fight after that. So I'm going to read a lot to you today, and it's boring. It's boring. I'm going to tell you now it's boring. During the middle of it, I'm going to tell you it's boring. But you're going to have to decide. Do you want to be good or do you want to be great? If you want to be great, keep listening. We're going to read to you. And I might read these next week because what we have going on the workroom floor, you heard it firsthand in this teleconference. You heard it. We are being attacked based off of PET. So what are we going to do here? We're going to educate on PET and DOIS and things that are going to help us with those things, PET and DOIS, okay? That's what we're going to talk about. And we're going to talk about them until I think we've got it. And I may talk about it after that as well. Because you know, and I know, we heard it, it's PET and DOIS. That's the thing. When we had the hour office time, we attacked it. We had stationary events, we attacked it. You had these 16.7s, we attacked it. And that's what we're going to keep doing, okay? So I'm going to read some M documents to you, and then I'm going to read an arbitration. It's a small arbitration, but I'm going to read it to you because it's something that's going on right now. And you'll see exactly what I'm talking about. It'll help you. But get your pen and paper. You're going to write these step 4s down, all right? Step 4 is just like contract language. It's that important. Their arbitrators are bound by step 4s. M1664. M1664, and we've read these before. I'm going to keep reading them to you. Why? Because you're going to have to determine whether you're going to be good or you're going to be great. I want you to be great. 1664. After reviewing this matter, the parties agree to resolve this dispute based on the following. The Delivery Operations Information System, DOIS, is a management tool for estimating a carrier's daily workload. The use of DOIS does not change the letter carrier's reporting requirements outlined in Section 131 of Handbook M41. I'm going to read that again because that is so important. It's so important. It's our responsibility. It says this is their tool, but here's the carrier's responsibility. The use of DOIS does not change the letter carrier's reporting requirements outlined in Section 131.4 of Handbook M41. The supervisor's scheduling responsibilities outlined in Section 122 of Handbook M39, or the letter carriers and supervisor's responsibilities contained in Section 28 of Handbook M41. DOIS projections are not the sole determinant of a carrier's leave or return time or daily workload, and that's the most important sentence in M1664. Okay? DOIS projections are not the sole determinant of a carrier's leaving or return time or daily workload. Remember that when I get to this arbitration. All right? As such, the projections cannot be used as the sole basis for corrective action. That's going to be important in this district where you heard this banshee yelling out at the supervisors and this clown, whoever he was, talking about estimations and expectations. Okay? As such, the projections cannot be used as the sole basis for corrective action. A 5-minute time credit for lines 8 through 13 will be added, or when route inspection data is available for lines 8 through 13, the average information will be used for daily workload projections. Okay? And then it talks about a 6-day count. M1444. Y'all got your pen and paper out, please? The one I just read, M1664. Here's M1444. M1444. On several occasions, we met in pre-arbitration discussions regarding the above referenced grievances. The issue in these grievances is whether or not the piece count recording system, PCRS, projected offer street time, post, or the delivery operations information system, DOIS, violate the national agreement. And you can put PET in there as well. You can go ahead and put PET in there as well because these are all the same. After reviewing this matter, we mutually agreed to settle these grievances as follows. Daily piece counts recorded in accordance with the above referenced systems, post, or DOIS, will not constitute the sole basis for discipline. That's important for you in this region when they talk about the teleconference. When he said set expectations based off of PET. Talking about our performance even though they did nothing to gauge our performance. They're setting y'all up for discipline. All right, so here's going to help you. Daily piece counts recorded in accordance with the above referenced systems, post, or DOIS, will not constitute the sole basis for discipline. However, daily counts recorded in accordance with these procedures may be used by the parties in conjunction with other management records and procedures to support or refute any performance-related discipline. This does not change the principle that pursuant to Section 242.332 of M39, no carrier shall be disciplined for failure to meet standards. That's important for y'all in that region. It's important for everybody, but in that region, y'all heard them. Y'all heard the game plan. This does not change the principle that pursuant to Section 242.332 of M39, no carrier shall be disciplined for failure to meet standards except in cases of unsatisfactory effort, which must be based on documented unacceptable conduct that led to the carrier's failure to meet office standards. There's that word must. Okay? It doesn't say effort which might be based or which may be based. It says which must be based on documented unacceptable conduct that led to the carrier's failure to meet office standards. Furthermore, the pre-arbitration settlement there, dated October 22nd, 1985, provides that, here you go, there is no set pace at which a carrier must walk and no street standard for walking. Now, who does that benefit? The city letter carrier. Do you know why it benefits the city letter carrier? Because we are the one who does the work. Management does not. They don't deliver the first piece of mail. They don't have a bag on their shoulder, spray on their bag. We are the ones who do the work. So these things benefit the city letter carrier because we do the work. Again, provides that there is no set pace at which a carrier must walk and no street standard for walking. For those of you in that telecom, that region, that's for you. Show that to that guy, okay? Because he doesn't know what he's talking about. No set pace at which a carrier must walk, no street standard for walking. M1444. M385. M385. It's September 8th, 1976. Now, if management, and they'll attempt to do this, if they say those things are antiquated, they're too old, we don't use them anymore, they will have to show where these things have been replaced or amended. They cannot do it. If this thing was from back in 1902, it's still valid. All right, so M385. On September 8th, 1976, we met with you to discuss the above captioned grievance at the fourth step of our contractual grievance procedure. The matters presented by you, as well as the applicable contractual provisions, have been reviewed and given careful consideration. The information presented in this case establishes that the grievant was approached by a supervisor and told that she was not making standard. Do y'all remember this teleconference? Again, I'm going to keep beating that teleconference to death. Y'all remember when they were talking about performance and they've not done anything to gauge our performance, office counts, efficiency counts, 4584s? She was not being disciplined at this point, but rather was being advised as to what the supervisor felt he observed. Such action in and of itself does not constitute a violation of the terms and conditions of the national agreement. Therefore, the grievance is denied. It is acknowledged that the proper stipulated manner for determining the efficiency of an employee and whether or not the employee is in fact meeting standards is to conduct a one-day count as provided in Handbook M39 and M41. And that's what we was talking about when we was listening to that teleconference. There's no efficiency count. There's been no 1838C. Okay, you cannot tell me that I'm not meeting standard based off of linear measurement, a ruler, not giving me a piece count. So I'll read that again. It is acknowledged that the proper stipulated manner for determining the efficiency of an employee and whether or not the employee is in fact meeting standards is to conduct a one-day count as provided in Handbooks M39 and M41. Under the circumstances presented in this case, it is not shown that such a formal approach was necessary or that management was seriously questioning the efficiency of the grievance. That's M385. M326. M326. On July 26, 1972, we met with you to discuss the above captioned grievance at the fourth step of our contractual grievance procedure. A review of the material submitted at the fourth step level indicates that the grievance did inform management of their inability to complete their routes in 8 hours. Now, this is going on a lot. That's the reason I want to put this one in here, especially with these auto pivots. Management's denying all 3996s. You heard that on the teleconference. Deny them. You got 3996s, deny the 3996s. This is going on everywhere. So I'll read this again. A review of the material submitted at the fourth step level indicates that the grievant did inform management of their inability to complete their routes in 8 hours. Further, it was demonstrated that they were ordered by management to complete the routes. Although there was no expressed authorization to complete the delivery of the mail on an overtime basis, the permission would be inherent in the authorization to continue delivery after notification that the grievants were unable to complete the routes. Therefore, the grievance shall be awarded overtime for the exact amount of time worked on April 7, 1972. Why is that important? You deny my 3996 based off of DOIS and PET, which is what they're doing. You heard that. I call in and I say, hey, I told you I needed this time. You've denied my 3996. What do you want me to do? You want me to bring it back or keep delivering? Well, keep delivering, but it's unauthorized. M326 is what you're going to need. M326. That's what's going to beat that, okay? M1769. Here's another one. The issue in this grievance is whether the office efficiency tool used to project office and street time in the Greater Indiana District violates the national agreement. Do you see how management will come out every so many years with a different name for it? DOIS, PET, PCRS, different things like that. They'll just change the name for it. It's the same thing. They'll just change. We'll have to get a national level grievance, and they'll have to have a step 4 come out of it every time. But here we go again. The issue in this grievance is whether the office efficiency tool used to project office and street time in the Greater Indiana District violates the national agreement. After reviewing this matter, we mutually agreed to settle the grievance as follows. The subject office efficiency tool is a management tool for estimating a carrier's daily workload. We've heard that before. The office efficiency tool in the Greater Indiana District or any similar time projection system tool that incorporates PET will not be used as the sole determinant for establishing office or street time projections. That's going to help you where you're in that region with that teleconference, right? Accordingly, the resulting projections will not constitute the sole basis for corrective action. This agreement does not change the principle that pursuant to Section 242.332 of Handbook M39, no carrier shall be disciplined for failure to meet standards except in cases of unsatisfactory effort which what? Must be based on documented, unacceptable conduct that led to the carrier's failure to meet office standards. Furthermore, as stated in the agreement for this case, there is no set pace which a carrier must walk and no street standard for walking. Projections are not the sole determinant of a carrier's leaving or return time or daily workload. I'll read that again. This is M1769. Projections are not the sole determinant of a carrier's leaving or return time or daily workload, and that's going to help with this arbitration that I'm going to read you. The use of any management-created system or tool that calculates a workload projection does not change the letter carrier's reporting requirements as outlined in Section 131.4 of Handbook M41. The supervisor's scheduling responsibilities outlined in Section 122 of Handbook M39, or the letter carrier's and supervisor's responsibilities contained in Section 28 of Handbook M41. All right? That's M1769. M829. M829. The question raised in this grievance is whether management may discipline a letter carrier for expansion of street time and or authorized overtime using data obtained by management during a one-day inspection of the carrier's route. You heard those people in the teleconference talking about the $39.99. Talking about the $39.99. When's the last time you did a $39.99? What did the $39.99 say? That's demonstrated performance. If there is no set pace at which I must walk or no street standard for walking, I cannot have a demonstrated performance. Okay? After a further review in this matter, we mutually agreed that no national interpretive issue is fairly presented in the particulars evidenced in this case. Under Article 16, no employee may be disciplined except for just cause. In this instance, the parties agree that a one-day count and inspection may not be used as the sole basis to establish a standard against which a carrier's performance may be measured for disciplinary purposes. I'll read that again because that will crush the entire teleconference. In this instance, the parties agree that a one-day count, that's a $39.99 and 1838C, and inspection may not be used as the sole basis to establish a standard against which a carrier's performance may be measured for disciplinary purposes. Whether or not discipline is properly issued, i.e. just cause exists under given circumstances, is a factual dispute suitable for regional determination. That's M829. Here's M111. M111. Dear Mr. Riley, on October 5th, 1978, we met with you to discuss the above captioned grievances at the fourth step of our contractual grievance procedure. The matters presented by you, as well as the applicable contractual provisions, have been reviewed and given careful consideration. The M39 handbook provides for a one-day count of mail when necessary. Under the circumstances, we find no violation of the national agreement and the grievance is denied. However, a one-day count of mail should be utilized for the purposes intended by the M39 handbook, and local officials are to ensure that one-day counts are not used for the purposes of harassment. I'll read that last part again. However, a one-day count of mail should be utilized for the purposes intended by the M39 handbook, and local officials are to ensure that one-day counts are not used for the purpose of harassment. M0005. So it's M5. On January 7th, 1977, we met with Mr. Al May to discuss the above captioned grievance as the fourth step of our contractual grievance procedure. The matters presented, as well as the applicable contractual provisions, have been reviewed and given careful consideration. The grievance mail was not counted to determine their efficiency in this instance. Data from the counts were not, nor will they be, used as a basis for disciplinary action. Consequently, the grievance case is considered to be closed. I'll read that again. The grievance mail was not counted to determine their efficiency. This will help you in that teleconference in that region, okay? You had two buffoons holding that teleconference that have no idea of any of these step fours or any contractual language or a JCAM or the national agreement or anything. They have no idea. They're getting their marching orders and just barking them out. So these things will help you. The grievance mail was not counted to determine their efficiency. That's the only way you can determine my efficiency, is to count my mail. A piece count, not a linear measurement, a piece count. That's M5, all right? Here's an arbitrator's decision I'm going to read and then we'll be done. I said 30 minutes, it's 35. Anyway, write this C number down because a lot of you are talking about this very thing and are sending me pictures. Here's an arbitrator's decision that's going to help you. It's C29806. C29806, it's arbitrator Jonathan Monette. 29806. And this is from 2011. The date of the award is 2012. Award summary. The grievance is sustained. Management violated Articles 3, 5, 15, and 19 and or 34 of the National Agreement when it posted a daily pivot board. The remedy shall be specified at the top of page 10. Here's the background. Scripps Ranch became of the first stations in the San Diego district to install the flat sorting sequence FSS, creating a mismatch of office time and workload. Under Article 34, requires management to provide a fair day's work for a fair day's pay. Around May 11th of 2011, local management began to use a dry erase board to allegedly demonstrate the expected workload due to excessive office time. The routes were adjusted about October 27th, and the pivot board was no longer in use. The informal A was held on May 27th of 2011. After progressing through the grievance procedure, the Step B team impassed the dispute. The union moved the matter to arbitration. Position of the NELC. Shop steward L.C. Cathy Akana testified that the so-called pivot board was rarely changed after the names of the carriers and the amount of time to be pivoted was listed. The volumes were not posted. Carriers were instructed to take the pivot and call in by 3 p.m. if assistance was needed. Partials were not considered and were not given to carriers until the routes was pulled down. Consequently, there was a lot of mandatory overtime, which led to settlements totaling about $8,000. FSS reduced office time by about 50%. Management was posting pivot assignments before carriers reported without communicating with carriers to determine how much, if any, undertime each has. Does that sound familiar? With this auto pivot, these things, they just keep creeping around, don't they? It's just a boomerang. I'll read that again. Management was posting pivot assignments before carriers reported without communicating with carriers to determine how much, if any, undertime each has. Does that sound like the auto pivot I read to y'all the other day? It does to me. Management's claim that the day's mail volume is captured before the carrier's report is not correct. It does not include the extra carrier work in handling hot mail, packages, and countables. Numbers are posted before carriers report. Extra swings are determined before the carriers arrive at the office begin tour. That could be written today. The evidence suggests management is using DOIS to determine leave times. My, 2011. I'll read that again. The evidence suggests management is using DOIS to determine leaving times. Y'all heard that teleconference? Set expectations based off of PET. He said it. Use PET. Based on this testimony, Postal Service Management violated Article 19, M39, and M41, Article 34, and Article 15. Y'all want to know what your issue statement is? The Postal Service violated Article 19, M39, and M41, Article 31 and 34, and Article 15. Well, this is because they had prior B-team decisions. That's what it says here. There have been prior Step B decisions, 5 in the San Diego installation, and 1 pre-arb settlement regarding the improper use of DOIS. It has been made clear to management that DOIS is not the sole factor used in determining leaving time or pivots. The station manager cannot count mail and calculate casing time at 18 and 8 is less than 30 minutes, but then gets parcels and completes the pivot board before carriers arrive. At the very least, the pivot board violates relevant sections of the M39 and M41. Management is required by a prior Step B decision to discuss the workload and other factors with carriers when determining leave time. Management must use the base street time in DOIS or its own system to calculate a base average street time for a particular day. The M39 requires that all the mail be counted before management can determine office times. Pivoting routes and capturing undertime are management's tools to provide each full-time carrier with a full-time workload. The union seeks a remedy that includes cessation of the use of the pivot board and DOIS to determine a carrier's daily workload, cessation of instructing carriers on their projected leaving times, and cease and desist bullying of carriers by using DOIS as a speed-up tactic. Position of the USPS. Management argued that DOIS was not a factor utilized to determine a carrier expected leave and return time. Supervisor Mancia used annual leave and sick calls, and the pivot board did not replace Form 3996. A carrier's expected AM office time is calculated using casing standards of 18 and 8 per minute plus fixed office time. The base average time for a route is added to determine how much time the route should take for the day. Subtracting this amount from 8 hours yields the amount of time the carrier is available for auxiliary assistance. There is a settlement letter in the file, J2, that's Joint 217, signed by VP of Labor for the USPS and the President of the NELC, stating that DOIS is a management tool for estimating a carrier's daily workload. The use of DOIS does not change the carrier's reporting requirements in M41, the supervisor's responsibilities in the M39, or the joint responsibilities as stated in M41, Section 28. DOIS cannot be used as the sole basis of corrective action. Management is responsible for accurately recording volume and other data in DOIS. Route-based information may be changed only through a full count inspection or minor route adjustment. The use of the pivot board did not create changes affecting wages, hours, and other terms and conditions of employment, nor did such use create changes to Article 34 Worker Time Standard. The pivot board did not replace the Form 3996. The union failed to provide any hard evidence, offering only assumptions that DOIS was used to complete the pivot board. Supervisor Mancia's testimony was unrebutted. According to the M39, Section 122, the leave time for carriers is determined by 1. The normal workload for the route, 2. The time all of mail for this day's delivery is available, and 3. The time required to case this mail, withdraw, tray, or strap out, obtain parcels, and complete other required office duties. It is the responsibility of the delivery unit manager to record daily workloads for each route and provide assistance where necessary so carriers meet scheduled leaving times. The union failed to prove by preponderance of the evidence that the M41 and or the M39 were violated. There was no proof any carrier was harmed with respect to wages, hours, and working conditions. There have been about 15 grievances for improper OT scheduling related to the use of the pivot board. The documents were not placed in the grievance file by the union. There is no evidence of bullying, intimidation, or use of DOIS as a speed-up tactic. Pivoting routes and capturing undertime are management's tool to provide each full-time carrier with a full-time workload. Arbitrator Menthal held that there is no remedy when either party is in the position they would have been in had there been no contract violation. A remedy restores the status quo ante, and we've talked about that numerous times on the other podcast. In the instant case, there is no proof management scheduled swing carriers before they entered the facility. There is nothing in the case file to show that management used only DOIS to determine a carrier's workload for the day or as a speed-up tactic. The Step B team did recognize management's right to use DOIS in determining workloads and leaving times. Arbitrators' findings and discussion. The arbitrator studied the entire record, including examination and cross-examination of both witnesses, moving papers, the NA and JCAM, other arbitration decisions, and the post-hearing briefs of the parties. The union has the burden of proving a contract violation by preponderance of the evidence. All evidence has been considered and given appropriate weight, whether or not specifically discussed below. Discussion of the arbitrator's rationale focuses on the salient and compelling reasons underlying the decision. The use of the Delivery Operations Information System, or DOIS, has been a bone of contention between the NELC and management since its implementation. The moving papers contain at least 4 Step B decisions in the period 2008 to 2009. The decisions issued cease and desist orders stopping DOIS from being used as the sole basis for determining leave times. In one case, the proposed leave times were written on a plastic card at each carrier's case before discussing workloads with carriers in a manner similar to the pivot board. The 7th Step B decision held that management failed to abide by the other 6 Step B decisions. The B teams in each case concluded that DOIS was used improperly as the sole source of information for determining leave times. The M39 Section 122.21 sets out the criteria by which carriers' leave times are determined. 4 factors are listed. A. Workload, the normal workload for the route. B. Availability of mail, the time all mail for the same day's delivery is available. C. Necessary office time, time required to case the mail, withdraw, tray, or strap out mail, obtain parcel post, and complete other office duties. And D. Business hours, normal community business hours. Furthermore, M39 Section 122.22, paraphrasing, states that the delivery unit manager must be aware of and record the daily workload for each route and provide assistance where necessary for carriers to meet scheduled leaving times. Use carrier late leaving reports to help determine performance efficiency. J219. Although Step B decisions recognize management's right to use DOIS in determining workload and leave times, DOIS cannot be the sole source of information when determining leave time. This is confirmed in a letter dated September 11, 2007, signed by NELC President Young and USPS VP Labor Relations Tolino, stating that DOIS does change the letter carrier's reporting requirements. She meant to say doesn't. Supervisor scheduling responsibilities, or the letter carrier's and supervisor's responsibilities. DOIS projections are not the sole determinant of a carrier's leaving or return time. This letter makes it clear that the M39 and M41 still govern, although data may still be recorded in DOIS. DOIS does not take into account availability of mail or other office duties and does not include the interaction with carriers to determine performance expectations. The remedy in each of the Step B decisions included an order to cease and desist using DOIS as the sole basis for determining street and office time. The Step B decision dated July 31, 2009 added a cease and desist order for failing to abide by the prior Step B decisions as well as pre-arbitration settlements and a national Step 4 decision. The San Diego installation was instructed by 2 Step B decisions to cease and desist posting leave times for carriers solely on DOIS. Management will review the route's workload with each carrier every day to determine leaving and return times. Also, the same Step B decision, citing a pre-arbitration settlement held, management will cease and desist approaching letter carriers before they have received their last dispatch of mail, including accountables and parcels, and telling the carriers what time they will be leaving for and returning from their routes based on DOIS projections. This case could be done today. These are contentions that we would have today. The summary and review of the several Step B decisions, M39 and M41, particularly in relevance to the San Diego installation, is important to understand the issue and facts of the instant case at Scripps Ranch Annex. There is unrebutted testimony by Union Steward Akana that the pivot times were posted by the time clock when the carriers reported for duty at 7:30 a.m. Shop Steward Akana testified that the parcels and spurs were not sorted by the clerks until after the carriers began tour, nor was residual mail known. This was not disputed by management. It is clear mail volume is not uniformly distributed but will vary daily on each of the 27 routes. Based on Mr. Akana's unrebutted testimony, the carriers are not consulted before the data are posted on the pivot board. Given only one manager of the floor before 9 a.m., there is a heavy burden on that supervisor to gather information from 27 carriers. Mr. Mancia testified that he knew much of the volume, parcel count, and the mix of mail before the carriers arrived at 7:30. The pivot board was completed by 7:25. According to Mr. Akana, again unrebutted, the times and data on the pivot board rarely were changed by the manager, even though he claimed it was not definitive. The preponderance of the evidence suggests otherwise. Mr. Mancia testified not only that he had completed his own counts by 7:30 a.m., he testified that he made mental calculations for each route using standard time elements. He added the base street time, a standard number, his own survey of the work area, and minimum standards for casing mail, 18 and 8. Then he added fixed office time of 33 minutes. Thanks, Renfro. Pulling down at the rate of 70 pieces per minute, he calculated standard time for average pull-down rates in minutes to arrive at office time. With street time determined to be 5.5 hours and 4.5 minutes for miscellaneous office time, Mr. Mancia came up with 625 hours or 1.75 hours of undertime. This is the basis for the pivot board, which he testified was created in order to communicate with letter carriers. What Mr. Mancia failed to do is communicate directly with, in cooperation with the letter carriers on each of the 27 routes, as required by the M41 and M39. Step B team's decisions discussed above held that DOIS does not relieve management of its responsibility to discuss the workload and other factors, M39 section 122.21 and others, when determining leave time. Discussion means face-to-face interaction with each letter carrier to negotiate the lead time and determine if auxiliary assistance or some other adjustment is necessary. This is a daily responsibility. Furthermore, the M39 specifically requires letter carriers to verbally inform management when you are of the opinion that you will be unable to case all the mail distributed to the route, perform other required duties, and leave on schedule, or when you will be unable to complete delivery of mail. M39 section 131.41. Once informed, management has the responsibility to issue the carrier appropriate instructions. The pivot board does not meet this requirement. What appears to have happened during the 8-month period, October 2020 to May 2011, is those daily conversations did not take place. A letter carrier cannot provide meaningful information until she is aware of all the mail that is to be delivered on the route. The numbers on the pivot board were not determination through mutual discussion per the manuals. Carriers were giving a leave time without any input and before the dispatch of mail, parcels, and accountables. The pivot board was used every day from October 2020 to May 2011, when its use was stopped because of completion of route adjustments. During the October-May period, however, the evidence supports the conclusion that pivot times were determined before the requirements of the M39 and M41 were met. Stuart Acana testified on rebuttal that pivot schedules rarely changed, even though Mancia testified carriers could use a 3996 to request assistance. The arbitrator recognized that many Form 3996 requests are not granted. However, the preponderance of the evidence supports the union's claim that the pivot board remained essentially unchanged and, therefore, DOIS was the primary means on determining leave and return times. That will be perfect for you if you're filing agreements like in that region where those boneheads are on that teleconference. This conclusion means that letter carriers are effectively left out of determining leave and return times, a violation of Article 19, M39, and M41, and Article 34. Management has argued that the use of the DOIS does not impact wages, hours, and working conditions. Certainly, the carrier's pay is not impacted in a negative way, given the 8-hour per day, 40 hours per week guarantee. The parties negotiated certain conditions of employment requiring that supervisors and letter carriers discuss the 4 factors set forth in M39, Section 122.21 and 120.22. By circumventing this requirement and making the pivot board the primary tool, management has made DOIS the sole decision tool, contrary to the National Letter of Agreement. Meaningful communication discussing the M39 factors is a contractually required working condition. There is not much hard evidence in the record that local management bullied and intimidated carriers by using DOIS as a speed-up tactic. One can look at the number of grievances during the period in question to get an indirect measure of worker sentiment and dissatisfaction. Certainly the carriers did not welcome DOIS. However, there is not sufficient evidence in the record to enable the arbitrator to reach conclusion the fact that management was engaged in bullying and intimidation of letter carriers at the Script Ranch facility. Remedy: the union has requested a specific set of cease and desist orders. The arbitrator will order most of the orders requested even though the pivot board is no longer used at Scripps Ranch. The orders are: 1. Management shall cease and desist from utilizing pivot boards to assign daily pivots. That's beautiful. 2. Management shall cease and desist using DOIS as the primary tool to determine a carrier's daily workload. And 3. Management shall cease and desist instructing carriers on their proper leave times without the required verbal communication and discussion. That's a fantastic decision for you with those pivot boards. Everybody's getting the pivot boards. They're sending me pictures all over the place. That's a fantastic decision for you, right? Very good one for you. And that's C29806. C29806, Jonathan Monette. So there you have it. Another edition of the Lion's Den. 55 minutes. Right at the 30-minute mark that I wanted. And so, isn't that terrible? 30 minutes. I want it to be 30 minutes. I'm going to lose your interest reading and reading and reading. 55 minutes. But you've got to decide this. You've got to decide this. Do you want to be good or do you want to be great? Right? It's all up to you. I'll be on here every week reading and talking about things. What you're going to have to decide is if you want to be good or you want to be great. All right? And then we'll get into legendary after that. All right? So, all right. Y'all have a fantastic rest of the week. There's another edition of the Lion's Den. I love you, light blue. Please be safe out there. Man, it was hard on me today. It was hot. I struggled today. I sweat more today than I have all year. And so it was a tough one today. Y'all take care of yourself. There's nothing more important than you. Nothing. I'll tell you this story and then I'll let you go. Had a carrier reach out to me, a shop steward reach out to me and said that one of their carriers had one of the vans with the air conditioner. The air conditioner was out. It was not working. There was no fan, no nothing to circulate air. Management instructed the carrier that they needed to take the vehicle anyway, and the carrier refused, saying that it was unsafe. Management says, then we're going to put you on lunch until we get you another vehicle. We talked about that's a grievance. That's a grievance. But it shows you what they think about us. There's no fan, no air conditioner. Take the vehicle anyway. Listen to me. Listen to me, carriers. There's nothing more important than your safety. Nothing's more important than your safety. You're working for somebody who could care less about your safety. But we've shown it over and over and over again. There's nothing more important than your safety. Let's grieve it. We can grieve it. Don't do anything stupid just because management wants you to go out there and die. Okay? I love you, Light Blue. Y'all have a great rest of the week. I'll talk to y'all maybe Monday or Tuesday. Depends on when I get back, what time I get back. Going to be in Minneapolis meeting my brothers and sisters up there this weekend, okay? So I'll talk to y'all later. I love you.